Hey team, this week we talked to Clayton McMillan, who is the head coach of the Chiefs.
Yeah, he's never done a podcast before. This was his first appearance, and we got to some pretty amazing areas with him.
The coaching insight in the second half is world elite. It will blow you away. The cultural stuff and how he built identity around the Chiefs. There's so much goodness in here. You're going to love this one.
Yeah, if you've seen the documentary on TVNZ, this gives you a little bit more of an insight into what happens at the Chiefs Rugby Club, and one of my favourites so far.
This episode was brought to you by TAB. Download the new app today and get your bet on. Clayton McMillan, welcome to Between Two Beers.
Pleasure to be here, man.
We're very excited for this chat today. You're our favourite type of guest because you've such an interesting, rich life story to tell, but you very rarely, if ever, share it publicly. And so, first of all, we feel incredibly privileged to share this space with you. But I had to laugh when I was talking to your wife, Natalia, yesterday, because she kept saying, how long did you say the podcast was? And he doesn't really like talking about himself, and good luck. But yeah, this first question is, how are you feeling about sort of, long form podcast and sharing your life with us?
I'll tell you in about an hour and a half. No, pretty good. It was good to catch up before and have a little bit of a chat around what you might expect from this podcast. And I've got an awareness of my position that people always want to get a little bit of insight into the team and myself. So I feel a responsibility to sort of, do my bit to give people that insight. But yeah, it's not my normal sort of cup of tea to talk too much about myself. I'm a pretty reserved sort of guy, actually.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Talia said is like, he will try and deflect and make it about the team. I'm like, no, he needs to know this is about him. This is about him. But we did hear you had your 50th recently, sort of a big celebration. Has turning 50 impacted your outlook on life?
Probably just in denial a little bit around turning 50 for a start. And then Talia was desperately trying to organise something, a party of some description. And I said, yeah, we'll do something. But I felt like if I just kept postponing enough, a bit like this podcast, actually,
it's been a long time coming,
people would kind of just forget and the date would come and go and I'd get away with it. But wasn't so lucky, but was actually awesome wee party, good opportunity to bring, some family and friends, people that had been an important part of my life, together to celebrate. And I think, that was what it was about, really. It wasn't actually about celebrating me turning 50. It was about recognizing that it's an important milestone, but you don't actually get there without the support of a lot of important people. And it was more about acknowledging them than the milestone, really. So yeah, a really great night. And hopefully the 60th takes a little longer to come around.
Whose call was the double denim theme?
I don't know. It's just, I'm told that I'm led to believe that there's, you've got to theme everything these days, 21st, and so, I just wanted something that actually probably was reflective of, my youth, the good old days, and certainly was pretty well known, I think, for a little bit of double denim, the old stonewash in particular back in the day. So, and we thought that, everyone probably from young and old that turned up would have some denim in the old closet, and that was good. Everybody bought in. It was good night.
Reputedly, you're quite a snappy dresser by all accounts, from our sources say, maybe self-confessed. How's the wardrobe look?
It actually, it depends on the body, to be fair.
That was the other comment that came through, that there's been almost two parts of your life, was the rugby playing Clayton and then the post-rugby playing Clayton.
Oh, mate, yeah, so you certainly become a bit more aware around, some things that used to look really good all of a sudden don't look so good when you put them on anymore. But I do say that, I think it's been about 20 years since I actually last played rugby. I reckon I put on maybe a kilo a year over those 20 years. And so if you break that down, that's actually not too bad.
Yeah. That's like going from XL to a double XL, I reckon.
That's it. Yeah. So, that's the constant battle that we all get to when we start getting a little bit older, isn't it? Is making sure that we prioritise some of our own health and well-being and staying fit and active. And
yeah, that and making good fashion choices too, because I've made some big faux pas in my later years. I know that for sure.
So this is actually the second time we've met. And the first resulted in me sending you a big apology. We were invited to speak to the Chiefs group earlier this year, and we were both quite nervous about it. And I took a quick video, I think about 5 seconds, of Seamus looking nervous and sent it to our team, and it ended up on social media. The problem was it had some very private, sacred, cultural team themes and messages in the background. And once alerted to it, I felt really sick. Such care and time had been spent explaining the sort of the sanctity of the space to us, and I felt like a real piece of shit. But you immediately accepted my apology and we moved on. But yeah, Seamus doesn't let me forget it.
Yeah, well, I felt like and I think I was probably at an advantage because I'd been in there before and it had been explained to me. And I think I even said I was like, no, don't film that. And yeah, it was. Like, without making light of it, it is a very, very important part of a team and a team culture, right? That is the inner sanctum. Is that kind of how it's viewed?
Yeah, I think there's a willingness on our part to, sort of allow people to come into our inner sanctum, so long as some of the stuff within that inner sanctum is protected. And, teams are often looking for that little bit of edge, and you can get a little bit of insight into, your competitors, and it could be highly advantageous. So, yeah, it was a bit of a surprise one day. I'm not even on social media, so I can't even remember.
I think it was a player that brought it up.
Oh, it may have been, yeah.
It was an Instagram story, so it was just one of these little things that would have flicked across someone's site. And yeah, and as good processors, it gets to the top dog. And
look, and it was only one little photo that showed a little snippet of the room, but I was like, what the hell? Straight on the blower to the commercial department. What the hell's going on here? What sort of circus are you running?
Cancel that podcast. I'm never going on. Who let these cowboys in here?
But no, I probably felt equally bad when you actually sent the apology email. I was like, oh mate, no, it's not that bad. Don't lose any sleep over it. But yeah, look, it's a sacred part of the organisation, and we love it when people come in and they get to see a little bit around what makes us tick and what's important to us. And we just asked that, they kept it to themselves. So, but all good.
Yeah, all good now. That was a really special afternoon for us. We came in and shared part of our story, but we did it in a different way. And Shay shared a lot of his sort of vulnerability and sort of the adversity he's been through. But yeah, what a great group. Just like so respectful. Everyone comes up and shakes your hand and looks you in the eye afterwards. And just like all those little things that you notice are just done right.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And it's something that we hear frequently, to be fair. Hard to have a successful rugby team without good people. And we'll work really hard to ensure that anyone we bring into our environment is, ticks the character box. And we understand that, doing things well off the field is going to, ultimately translate into achieving good things on the field. So a lot of work done in that space. And, it's important to us. It's important, in order for us to sort of foster that Chiefs mana ethos, then, we need to do some stuff that's actually going to shed positivity on individuals, the team, and the club. And so recognising people when they come into our environment is a very simple way of doing that, but an important one.
I think that that Chiefs mana, which started, I feel like it started almost as a marketing kind of a slogan, but in terms of a value, it's really brought to life by the organisation now. I'm not just saying that because we're sitting opposite you. I really do think that it has some substance to it.
Yeah, I think so. And I probably, prior to coming into the Chiefs, had the same opinion that it was more of a slogan, a bit of a catch cry. Certainly something that our support base, pretty proud of. But I really wanted us to move away from us promoting it because, mana is something that's should never be assumed and always earned. So, there's stuff that we need to do to help enhance the mana of the individuals, the organisation, and the team. And it's a big part of it. It's effectively our why. It's our purpose is to ensure that we always carry ourselves in a way that's going to happen. And people should be able to see it, hear it, and feel it. And talking to you guys when you come in, and when a lot of people come into our environment, it's pretty humble. As you know, it's a fairly old sort of building, and in comparison to a lot of our competitors, is could be viewed as a long way short of high performance, but there's a wairua about the place. There's a feel. There's something about it, and you can see it, hear it, and feel it when you're around. So we'll love it.
Yeah, totally. So as we said at the start, we've spoken to a lot of people in your life, and we've got a cracking lined up. But one of them is friend of the show, JP Toka, and he's given us a few sprinkles that we're going to sort of put throughout the episode. And I want to start with the first two. He said it might be interesting to ask him why he's called Donk. Nickname is Donk. Where does the nickname Donk come from?
Yeah, look, there's about a million versions of why I got called Donk, but the real absolute truth of the situation is that I can remember it was pretty common knowledge that when you started playing provincial rugby that, after games it'd be a decent sort of a layer up. And on one of these particular occasions, I got all the new guys of the team to stand up and say, well, what's your nickname? And everyone sort of went through theirs, and I was probably one of the last. And I stood up and I says, my nickname is Mick. It's short for McMillan. That's pretty much what most of my schoolmates had called me all the way through school. And one of the guys that was on the back seat, Dave Moncoe, I think, bit of a renegade, bit of a rough bastard. He says, Mick, nah, not good enough. I would say he just chucked it out to the floor, and so everybody started chucking out a whole bunch of horrendous names. And somebody eventually held out Donkey, and he goes, I like that. It's too long. So from now on, you'll be known as the Donk. And that was it.
That was it. And it stuck.
And it stuck. Yeah.
I stood the test of time. I said this to Steve before. I feel like, as we'll get into it, you've got a public persona, and I would never dream of assuming I could call you Donk, but it seems to be quite common amongst sort of rugby and media circles that Donk gets thrown out. And I just found it like quite an anomaly that a nickname is so prominent for someone in your position with the way that you carry yourself.
Yeah. I'm really comfortable with it, actually it sort of disappeared for a little while because I kind of went down to Wellington where I was introduced to Jipper, and, when you go to a new city, you can kind of reinvent yourself and nobody really knows what your nicknames are, but somehow they got a hold of it.
I'm Mick.
Yeah. Somehow they got a hold of it, and again, it sort of stuck. But it's probably got to the point where it's just become so common that it actually is funny when somebody says Clayton,
all right,
you're in trouble. That's Natalia, Clayton, or something's wrong then there. Yeah.
All right, got it. Donk. I feel like I'm comfortable enough now that I can.
Yeah, mate, go for it.
I can use it.
So the second one JP said, we once had Glenn Jackson ref a club game in Wellington, which we just won. And after the match, we thought, shit, that was close. But Donk goes, don't worry, lads, never in doubt. Ask him why.
Nah, there was never any skullduggery like that going on and behind the scenes. Purely professional in the coaching referee stakes, but obviously played with Jacko for a long time, and great now that he's got into the coaching business, and going to be awesome to see him lead the Drua. But I can't give you a definitive answer other than to say that, when you know somebody pretty well at club rugby, you're going to hope that they give you a couple of favours. And we probably did get a couple there, but certainly wasn't through me giving any standover tactics or anything.
There's that path from player to referee to coach is a really unique one. Do you know anyone else that's gone from first class rugby into referee?
Nick Berry. There's a couple of referees that are refereeing at the elite level now that have come through, the professional playing ranks. And you can understand why. They have a really, intimate understanding of the game, and if they're fit and able and they want to contribute and they don't really want to jump into, contributing through coaching, then this is a great way to do it.
Yeah. Not a well-walked path.
No.
JP also said Clayton is an epic human on and off the field. He still scares the shit out of me, though. And then I told him we'd been talking to Natalia, and he said, holy fuck, he's in trouble. I'm more scared of her, actually. But I had a great chat with Natalia, and I'm going to bring her voice in now. She said, We had his 50th back in August, and he was quite vulnerable then. I think vulnerability in public is probably not a thing that is natural to him. He's quite stoic, I suppose, and perhaps that's part of that persona that people see. But in his personal space, people know that he hasn't had a conventional upbringing, and he's not afraid to acknowledge that. And he always openly acknowledges the people that have had a hand in raising and supporting him. He actually admitted in his speech, he said, I was probably a bit of a dick back in my day, probably peed a few people off. And I think he said something along the lines of, he always felt like he had a point to prove to people and to prove people wrong because of the relatively unconventional family situation. And I was kind of hoping we could dig in here a bit and sort of talk about the early days. So I guess to start, how do you reflect on your childhood and sort of why did you move from Perth to Rotorua?
Yeah, no problems talking about it whatsoever. I think my dad, probably in his early 20s, I couldn't be 100% sure. Guy had been brought up over in Matakano Island in the Bay of Plenty. Him and a couple of mates went over to Perth, find some work, ended up working in the abattoirs, met my mother. Obviously, I was a result of that. But unfortunately, my mother passed away when I was about 5-6 months old. So I never really, obviously never really knew my mother. So she died of skin cancer, melanoma. And then I think, maybe a year or two passed, and my dad ended up bringing me back to New Zealand. My mother, I should add, is purebred, like salt of the earth, Australian. All of my aunties and uncles, cousins,
real Oka.
Real Oka, like if you put me and them in the same room and said, those are your aunties, that's your first cousin, you'd laugh, you'd think, no way, like real, what's the movie I had them on about it, the castle. You ever seen the castle, mate? Dance, in a lovely way. That's my family.
Sponge cake.
Love them to death. So I come back to New Zealand, and when my dad came back to New Zealand, he moved in with my auntie and uncle. My auntie being my father's sister, and so from a very young age, I grew up with my dad being my dad, my auntie being my mum, my uncle being my uncle. My cousins being my brothers, and I suppose that in itself is not that unconventional. Like it's being whāngai out or relatives taking in other relatives is pretty common in Māori and I guess Pacific Island cultures, and that was my norm. Eventually, my dad remarried, and there were attempts for me to go and live with my dad. But for one reason or other, it just didn't work out. It wasn't.
Did he go back to Australia?
No. He lived in Rotorua, just down the road. Hadn't moved to the other side of the world or anything. But I was comfortable where I was, and every time I think the effort was made for me to go and move in with my dad and his stepmother, just didn't work. I was unhappy. Probably got a bit sick just out of being a bit stressed out, and that happened a number of times until eventually I think my old lady or my aunties put her foot down and said, enough is enough. There's no more. This is going to carry on, and it's going to be staying here. And so that's what happened. And I didn't really leave there until I flew the coop and left school and started living life. In the meantime, my dad had a couple of other. Couple of sisters. My stepmother already had a son, so I had a stepbrother. And a little bit further down the track, found out that I had another sister in Australia, which is another story. That's, I guess my story again is my mum was really my auntie. My uncle was my uncle. My dad was the dad. Had a stepmum, a stepbrother, two sisters that ended up being three sisters, and two brothers that were actually my cousins. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was a bit.
But all whānau, right?
All whānau and all very loving, but just a little bit unconventional, I guess.
It's probably a lot for a young mind to kind of piece together on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
As
and
well.
Look, one thing I want to make really clear is that it was, there were definitely some tough times there, but I was always loved. I always knew that I was loved, and I never really had to I never wanted for anything. But when I did want something, it was always a little bit more, there's a little bit more to bringing that to fruition than just going, okay, we'll make it happen. So as an example, if I needed a new school uniform, we didn't just go down the shop and get a school uniform. It had to be a communication to another person, and then, wait until we had the money, and then get the uniform. And so I knew that I was loved. I was really happy where I was, but I probably developed early on a real awareness around, an awareness around who am I and where do I fit, where do I belong? And I think everybody wants a real sense of belonging. And as a consequence of that, I reckon, again, from a really early age, I come to the conclusion that, if it was meant to be, it was going to be up to me, that I had to kind of fight for every little bit that I wanted, for everything that I wanted in life. Even though the support base was always there, that was what was kind of going through my mind. And it really helped. So I think I didn't go back to Australia and meet my Australian family until I was in Form 2 at intermediate. And I reckon that was quite a pivotal moment in my career, my life, because I went back there, didn't really know them, but I instantly felt a connection and strong. And I think, I felt that love from them, because probably I was the missing link for them in terms of their daughter, their sister. So that link with us is strong to this day. So from that point on, virtually every Christmas for 6 weeks, I would go to Perth and fully immerse myself in that side of my family. And we're really tight to this day. So it probably doesn't sound that unconventional, but it certainly wasn't normal. And it definitely, those experiences when I was young helped shape, who I am today. I've certainly grown from more life experience, but, probably did things like have lots of little fights, when I was younger, fighting for everything physically and metaphorically. Had a chip on my shoulder, just wanted to prove that I was enough, that I was good enough. Yeah.
Was it a kind of a wanting to be the best at everything? Is that how it kind of manifested itself? Definitely
a competitiveness to say, hey, look, I can do it. I can do well at school. I can do well in my personal and professional life. Whatever I do, whatever I put my mind to, I will be steadfast, and I will just put my head down until I make it happen, basically.
Because it's probably a common misconception that you were just a good athlete at high school, but you were good academically as well, right?
I was bright, but I probably didn't apply myself as well as I could have. Like a lot of young men, you get involved in sport and get very competitive, and at that stage in your life, it seems like the most important thing, hanging out with your mates and getting some success on the rugby field or in other sports. And it's not until you leave and you look back and you say, oh, shit, maybe I should have applied myself a little bit better then.
Do you spend much time reflecting on, why you are the way you are and this childhood and how it's shaped you? Like, is it something that you do at the age you're at now, or have you always done?
I probably don't spend so much time reflecting on it now. I just have a far better awareness around through those experiences and other life experiences around why I am how I am. I probably didn't understand when Natalia talked about being a bit of a dick. Like, people probably thought I was definitely competitive, and I had walls up, but people interpreted that as probably an arrogance, whereas actually it wasn't necessarily an arrogance. It was just a protection mechanism to say, hey, look, I don't let people into my world easily. It's kind of got to be earned. I've got to trust you, and that, my inability to come and talk to you or engage or be really friendly is not personal. It's actually just kind of me figuring you out. And so as I've gotten older, I've obviously realized that, because I'm bigger by, big physical presence and carry myself with confidence that people can be intimidated by me. But because I've got an awareness of that, I'm much better at ensuring that I'm more forthcoming and more endearing to people that I come into contact with, because it would still be easy for them to draw the same conclusions that people used to when I was younger.
That's so fascinating, perception versus reality of what's really going on versus what people see. But it's worked to your advantage, I imagine, because especially in rugby, having that mana, that stoicism, that, that grizzly bear part of you.
When you need it.
When you need it is great. And we're going to talk about that later. But I want to introduce a character who's been there with you for the whole ride, and that's Aunty Marley. So she came in and sort of took on that motherly role, and she sounds like an absolute legend by the sound of things. But tell us about the role that she's played in your life.
Yeah, so I think I've talked about, her importance in my life for many a times, and I think it's just that gratitude, that gratitude that she took me in and treated me as her own son. And I can only imagine the conversations that probably went on behind closed doors with my uncle, that I was never aware of or never even really thought to think of, probably happened until, recently, that there would have been, it wouldn't have just been a case of saying, well, he's coming and living with us. There would have been all these other conversations going on, but she would have had them. And, my uncle, he was an amazing man too. She just continues to be that rock. I think, we all probably look at our mothers or grandmothers, and there's just something about them, isn't there, that it gives them that sort of matriarch status, the person that you can rely on, the silent warrior who's always got your back, no matter what, through thick and thin. And she's always been that.
And she's still that 79, knocking on 80, kicking people out of the rugby club,
mate,
at the end of the night. Is that right?
That and Facebook, I think, is what keeps her alive. Yeah, so she's still, she's been a long time retired, but still works at the Whakarewarewa Rugby Club on the bar. Stacks the crates up, stacks the fridge up, does the books, works all hours of the day and night, cleans the place up. We have been saying, look, if it's about money, we'll just give you the money. You don't have to do this. But I literally think that she just loves it. It's her way of staying connected to the club, which has been a big part of our family's lives. And I honestly think that, if she stopped, it wouldn't actually be that good for her. So, yeah, she'll keep rolling.
Yeah, I want to dig in there a little bit on the club. She'd been described to me, she had 8 siblings. Her home was a place where the waiata whānau would always pop in, and she took people in and fed them and looked after them in times of need. And perhaps that extended to Whakarewarewa, because like what you've just spoken about, she's the stalwart of the rugby community down there, and it's just a huge part of life. But was it an extension for you as well, the rugby club? Was that a place of real stability where you just felt welcomed, like a second home?
Yeah, 100%. It was helpful that the club was literally a couple of 100 metres walk away from our house. So, was always sort of a big part of our life. My father played there, so, when I was younger, my big connection to my dad was often through rugby. So, Tuesday, Thursday nights, he'd come around home. I'd help him do a stretching before training, go with him to training, kick a ball around, get dropped off after training. That was sort of our interaction. Saturday, catch up again, go and watch the game. And club rugby back in those days was massive, and sort of, rugby park there, real iconic venue, some fierce, rivalries, big battles. And I just grew up being red and black, Waka hard.
Did you play with your dad?
I did. I think I did play one game with him.
Wow.
Pretty sure he got sent off. He got yellow carded, which was a bit of a talking point. But
how's that experience?
A proud moment, I think, for both of us. He was a good player in his own right, halfback, believe it or not. So
wow.
Yeah. A lot of people that
Were
played.
you playing 8?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he'd be in there trying to get the ball and I'd slap him away. Get out of here, mate. I'll let you know when you can have the ball. But yeah, people from his playing era talk about how good a rugby player he was. it just helped grow that intense kind of passion for our club, a real community club, real, strongly affiliated to the local, iwi, hapu, so, of Tuarangi, Atawahio, Whakarewarewa village, and it was a great place where the club was, because it was backed onto the redwood forest. There was rivers, there was geysers, hot pools, there was a lot of stuff to explore. So Saturday afternoons, when you'd played your rugby, gone and watched senior rugby, go back to the club, Coke, chips, chocolate, and then all the other mates in that wonderland of, to go and explore was just helped, again, build that strong connection to the club.
Geez, you light up when you talk about it. There must be really heady, memorable days. It's clear from your recollection just how much of an impact the place has, which is awesome. And I think it's part that's missing for a lot of people, especially a lot of young kids these days, of having that kind of central community part that they go to and is so familiar.
Yeah, 100% right. Like I think, rugby clubs were the centerpiece or the focal point for communities and for families. And then I guess over time with the advent of professional rugby, with there being more other sporting, a lot more options for young people out there that, for some people it's always remained that important focal point, but for a lot it's kind of drifted away from it. And I think a lot of that can come down to the fact that I'm probably being a little bit stepping outside my politically, my what's the word, outside my role or portfolio here. But I think people, when you're young and you play for a club, and you play with your mates, it's really enjoyable. And then you head off to high school, and what we're seeing is a drop off of young men in particular, because I think that, there are other options, but it's becoming fairly elitist. So, people that are playing rugby and love playing for their club, always had a position, always got to play, suddenly get to high school and, if you don't make the first or second 15, then probably start to question, well, why should I continue? I've got other options, and some of them do. And we lose them to the game and they don't come back. Whereas, before professional rugby come along, people would still play the game for the love of the game and always go back to their rugby club, and, and numbers were strong. Clubs had a senior team, a senior B team, and under 21s and under 18s, like it was thriving, and just don't see that, now. Lucky if they have two senior teams in the club. So it's a little bit sad, but, I'm sure we can still work to find ways to turn it around.
And you've still got your friends from the club that are friends to this day, right? Is that a group that helps keep you grounded for all of the professional stuff and rugby stuff that you do at the moment now?
Yeah. No problem keeping my feet on the ground. Yeah. When we do well, they're the first ones to come chop me down. But equally when we aren't doing so well, you're going through those, that roller coaster ride that's professional coaching, and you have a few off weeks, they're the first ones to sort of check in and make sure that everything's all right. But I love the club, and a lot of my mates are still there, and I love nothing better. I don't get back to Rotorua as often as I'd like, particularly in season. But I love nothing better than going back there and just sitting there and getting a bit of a ribbing and giving some ribbing back and drinking a big bot and just feeling totally safe. Like no one's there to judge. Everyone's really supportive, but they're honest. Like I was there it would have been about 2 weeks after the Super Rugby final, where obviously we didn't get the job done. We got towed up actually by the Blues, and I walked in there and I thought I'd do the right thing when bought a couple of crates, stuck them on the table where my mates were and a few of the old fellas. And I sat down and I thanks boy. And then it was quiet for about 10 seconds. And then one of them looks down the table, he goes, "What the fuck happened, boy?" He says, "Did you have the trophy hanging on the wall already?" And then everyone erupted laughing, and and that was the start of another good night. So it's one of those places. Again, I don't often go into town. I sort of try to avoid being in the public, especially if you're enjoying a couple of beers. But that's one place that I feel like I can go to and just be myself. Yeah.
That. Tell us about Clayton, the rugby player. Did you fulfill your potential? Like, how do you reflect on your career?
No, I don't think I really fulfilled my potential. I think I was a good, honest, hardworking rugby player. I'm proud of the fact that I'd sort of played 113 games for Bay of Plenty, captained them for a large portion of those. Was good enough to play for a bit over in France, played in Japan professionally, and probably had opportunities, I think, to get to Super Rugby level. But also, my rugby career started at a time. I started in at the senior level, Bay of Plenty level was in 1995. The game turned professional in 1996, and at the early stages of professional rugby, I don't think anyone really knew what it was going to look like, and there certainly wasn't a massive amount of money to be earned from being a professional rugby player in the early stages. And there's one thing I knew that I always wanted to do when I was young was be a policeman, and so a lot of my energy was directed towards enjoying my club rugby and becoming a policeman. So I worked a number of different jobs until I was ready to do that. Became a policeman and balanced both. So I was playing for Bay of Plenty and I was being a cop at the same time. And I really saw myself as being a lifer, cop for life. And so never, I don't think I ever really achieved my true potential in rugby or in policing because I was actually just living the dream, balancing both. I didn't feel compelled to give up the rugby, which I probably the policing which I probably needed to do to really fulfill my potential as a rugby player, but wasn't prepared to do that and wanted to still play the rugby, but never really climbed the ranks like I probably had the potential to do in the policing because I was doing both.
What was it about the police that drew you? Like, why was that the path?
There were people, there were friends, older friends that were in the police and were good role models. And I don't know whether it was the excitement of the job or was the nature of sort of the unknown, like turning up to work every day and never really knowing what was going to come next. That sort of stuff appealed to me. I never really thought I'd get much value out of sitting at a desk or doing a mundane, kind of job. I wanted that variety in my life, and it presented that. But probably deep down, it was probably just that again. It was stability. It was that sense of doing something meaningful and having protection. That protection element again, and I think it was a range of things, not any one. But I definitely knew that that's where I wanted to go. Yeah.
You were a young leader, like you captained the Bay like so many times. One of your friends, Maru's given us a story about when you were captaining them at 21 and you were playing Auckland at Eden Park. They were up 24-11 with 8 minutes to go. And the chat was, what's our haka going to be, boys? We're going to get the shield. And then you lost. And I heard that was a particularly hard one for you to take as a captain. But are you of the mindset that, that's where you learn from? Like those failures and those things that go wrong in those positions, is that what you get the most out of? And did you learn a lot being a young captain?
Yeah, I definitely have come to appreciate that, when things don't go well, when you lose, when you face challenges in life, they present the greatest opportunity for growth if you're prepared to accept that there's room for growth. I learned a lot from lessons like that, no doubt about it. It was interesting. Bay of Plenty just had their 20-year anniversary for, winning the Shield in 2004, which I wasn't a part of because I'd just gone to Japan. But I did go and have a few celebratory drinks with them a couple of weeks back. But it did remind me of that time back in 1996. We were a second division team and playing a pretty rock star Auckland team minus a few All Blacks, so I think, who were away playing in a Tri-Nations or something like that. And, we played the game of our lives. And I can remember distinctly that the union had kind of, I don't know how it worked. They took out an insurance policy or something where they said, if you guys win the Shield, we're going to give you all $1,000. $1,000 in 1996 to a 21-year-old was like, fuck yeah, this is awesome.
We are.
Yeah. And we were playing the game of our lives. We were up, I think it was more like 29-11 with 8 minutes to go. And we just scored, came back, and I was standing there waiting to receive the kickoff. And I looked over to the sideline. I can remember this really clearly, looking over and going, fuck, there's the Ranfurly Shield. Like, I'm going to be on the front page of the Sunday news, the Sunday news, holding up the Shield. That's going to be me. And fuck, that's right. I got that $1,000 coming. Like, I want to go and buy a new TV. And, I probably only was thinking that for a moment, for a second, but I remember it very clearly. And then it all unfolded really badly. And even to the point where the very last scrum, Ao put into the ball on halfway, referee turns and says, this is the last play. Turn to Joe Tui and Andy Miller, who are the 9 and 10, come up with a plan, put the ball in, pass it to the 10, kick the ball out, Ranfurly Shield winners. He goes to put the ball in. Kevin Napier swipes the ball out of his hands. TMOs didn't do bugger all back in those days, or touchies. Swiped it under their side of the scrum. Pass, grab a kick out. Beautiful bounce. Bounces into the winger's hand, scores in the corner, still has to convert it. Kicks a conversion from the sideline. We lose 30-29.
Carrington, eh?
Yeah.
That is the detail of it.
But yeah, look, that's just, that's life, isn't it? Like, there's going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be, you're going to face challenges, and there are definitely growth opportunities and all of those. Yeah, that was certainly one of them.
You talk about challenges and lessons, and you gave us a list of people to contact. The only one that we couldn't get hold of was Gordon Tietjens, was Titch. And I brought it up with Rodney, who you coached with, Rodney Gibbs, in the past. And when I said, Titch hasn't come back to us, he just laughed and said, just ask Clayton the Titch stories. Clayton's got so many stories about Titch, and he tells them very, very well. So it's, it's not always about you, but we had DJ Forbes on, who talked about some of the sessions that Titch would put the Sevens boys through and beforehand. So you must have been privy to some stuff.
Oh yeah, he's a special man, old Titch. And I'm sure everyone that's had sort of any longevity in the teams that he's coached will have, like an encyclopedia of stories to tell about Titch. A lot of them probably need to be left in closed doors.
Mid-90s,
yeah,
early 2000s.
But he was, he taught me a lot. He taught me a lot around, strength and resilience and toughness. Like, you just didn't survive in his teams if you didn't have that in you. He's world renowned for, his strictness around diets and fitness and, like, quite anal around, some of that stuff. And people used to, find ways to, sort of sneak around the edges of, his rules. But he was, his heart was in the right place. He knew what he wanted out of a rugby team, and he never wavered. He believed in himself. Stories, like, talk about getting the best out of me as a player. Like, I reckon sometimes, if I was to be critical of Titch, and I do this, like, humbly, I'm not sure that, like, in the teams that I was involved with that he coached, that he got the 100% best out of us, because you never knew what else was coming. So, like, if you see the training was going to be 1 hour, you really knew that it was never going to be 1 hour. It was going to be more like 2 hours, and so he'd do things like, say, you'd have a brutal training session, my last 2 hours, and he'd go, on the line. And on the line was a pretty, regular saying. So you'd hop on the line, you'd wait for the instruction, you go, 80, 60, 40s, 80, 60, 40, which is a shadow of 80, 60 or 40 men. Just give me one, give me your best. Snot and spit coming out all sides. And you go, one touch, you go, just give me one, give me 100%. So you do it at about 98%, and then you fall over the line exhausted. And then you'd say, on the line. He'd go, fuck you, Titch. You said there was only one. He'd go, we always do them in sets of 5. And it was like that all the time. So, yeah, he was just tough. He was just always challenging you mentally, which is, again, I reflect back on it and I'm grateful for those, for that.
There's a fine line, eh? There's a fine line. And maybe there's, I don't know, this is me stepping out of my portfolio now, but, sometimes there is no school like the old school. Sometimes there is just, you've got to grit your teeth, bite down on the mouth guard, whatever the cliche is, and do hard work.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we've got a lot more tools at our disposal, GPS, and, we measure a lot of things, and there's some real science around how we get the best out of players and get them for peak performance for games and over the course of a season. And, the only measure that he used to operate on was he used to say, I don't need a GPS monitor to know that somebody's working hard. It's just through breathing and effort and probably spewing on the sideline. But it didn't make you tough. And I wonder sometimes these days that we've lost a little bit of that. Like I know our chess boys, they train bloody hard, but they're the first ones to know when you're tipping over the edge, and they'll come and give you that feedback, and inevitably will modify something in the rest of the week to sort of make sure that it sort of balances out. Whereas, that would have just been, on the line. Suck it up, on the line.
What does train under the cover of darkness mean?
That just, I used to use that terminology. So, because I don't know why I thought it was a competitive edge, but like the team used to often train at a commercial gym that we would have membership to. But when I first started going to the gym when I was younger, I'd go to Gold's Gym, which a couple of my older mates that were, they were pretty good gym bunnies, encouraged me to go to. So I started training with them, and then, and I didn't really want to change gyms. It was old school, it's where the
clanging and banging.
That's where the mill workers and the mechanics, and I was in an industrial area. That's where they used to go, and that was my experience. And so I would go there when a lot of the other team members and stuff would train at a commercial gym, and they'd go, why don't you come here? And I'd always just be, I train under the cover of darkness. It was my way of going, no, mate, I'm doing a little bit extra. I'm doing something different that you're not doing. And I don't know, it was probably full of shit. Yeah, probably just a need to not put yourself out there and constantly say, hey, look what I'm doing. It's just grind and just know that internally you're doing the work, and it will show when you get out on the battlefield.
Is that whole under promise, over deliver kind of mantra as well?
Yeah, a little bit of that. Yeah.
One of the big moves you made was going to Japan, going away, big money contract, setting yourself up. How do you reflect on that time? Like, was that a good decision? Was
big money contract? Yeah, certainly in comparison to the money that you made in New Zealand and policing, like infinitely better. But look, Japan is a great place. It's a very regimented society. Like, there's certain ways that you do things, and I didn't mind that. I was happy to conform, and there was a lot of similarities I saw in the Japanese culture that were very similar to in Māori culture. It's respect for your elders and just a certain way of doing things, right? A tikanga, they got a tikanga, the way that they do things. And I enjoyed the open nature of the way that the rugby was played. It was a welcome change after playing in New Zealand for a long period of time, where it was just becoming ever increasingly more physical. But the bit that I probably struggled with the most was just how we trained and I guess a little bit of the way that we were coached. I love the coaches. I love them as people, but I just felt that we could be a hell of a lot better than what we were. I went up to Coke. They were a second division team at that stage, had always had aspirations to get into the top league, and had never achieved it. And then when I got there, and a couple of other guys, Calvin Middleton and Joshua Pipi, some really good players, went up there, and I think we managed to encourage them to make a few shifts that ultimately helped us get to the top league. But there was just a real reluctance to keep evolving. Like it was just, this is what we've always done. Do what you always do, get what you always got. That sort of a mentality. And in the end, it just wore me down. Like I'm a bit more aspirational. I want teams to reach their potential. I want to win. And it kind of just got to the point where it felt like we were just okay being competitive. And in the end, that was enough to say, well, my time's done here.
And I spoke to Natalia about this phase because then you moved back to New Zealand and it's kind of like a transitional place, right? And a lot of guests we talk to that have been in that sort of professional sport environment and they figure out what the next chapter looks like is difficult. And you get back into the force, but it's kind of, first of all, it's starting from the bottom again, right? And it's shift work and you're looking after the kids and Natalia's out working. But also she spoke about like sort of getting humbled in a fitness test and not being able to like do the number of push-ups required to get in the door to start with. But was this quite a tough time for you?
I can definitely understand that the transition from being a professional rugby player to life in the real world can be the challenges are real. You got to understand that these players are well paid, and live by schedules, and often are connected to lots of different areas where they enjoy the perks of being a professional rugby player, and then all of a sudden that's taken away. And if you've set yourself up, if you've been smart with your money and you set yourself up financially, then that transition can be easier to deal with. And some people do that well. A lot of people do that well, and some don't. And for me personally, so my actual first job, Natalia probably forgot when I came back, was I got offered a job sort of developing a leadership program at Rotorua Boys High School.
Oh, she did mention that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot.
Was from Chris Grinter, who's only just recently retired at Boys High.
Did he come in your last year?
He started at Rotorua Boys High in my very last year at school. It did have done a phenomenal job as the principal there. Like, I love my time at Rotorua Boys High School, but look, if I look at even just the change, and he put the school on the map. It's saying, where was I going? So he offered me a job. He had this vision around sort of wanting to grow the leadership in the school, and thought that I'd be a person who might be able to help do that. So first couple of years I was back in New Zealand, I went in there and I did my best to help develop this leadership program, put a few things in that are still being used to this day, but ultimately wasn't really my calling, in the sort of teaching space, in the school space. And so Natalia and I and the kids eventually moved down to Wellington, and it was easier for me to probably contemplate going back into the police, because I knew I would have had to go and do some retraining. We were living in Wellington. I would have had to go to the police college in Wellington. So that's what I did. And there were a few challenges. Like, I don't know whether it was just because I was a retread or a cop coming back into the program again after having left. Did some fitness testing. The running was never an issue, and strength was never really an issue. But I remember doing the press up test and all that, and I thought I'd done it well, and they raised some concerns around the style or the technique that I was using.
Down.
I was like, mate,
pretty strong.
And so I got deferred from.
But for context, how many years had you been a police officer prior to that?
About 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, but I would have been out of the police for 6 or 7 years in between. So about 8 years in Rotorua, left to go to Japan, come back, went to Boys High, run a leadership program, moved down to Wellington, and eventually back into the police. That period there was probably about 7 years. So that was a challenge. I'd never encountered that. I'd never done a fitness test or strength test, and never failed or been questioned around my ability to do it properly. But I took it in my stride, and went back the next time they did it, passed, and ended up going back to the college, and then and then ended up in Porirua, of all places, policing. So I loved it. Yeah, I really loved policing. I think it's a great job. Would I go back there now? Not too sure. It's bloody dangerous out there, And you don't begrudge the work that they never take for granted, the good work that the police out there do. But again, rugby sort of got in the way.
How so? Like, how did the transition from the police back into full-time coaching work?
Well, when I came back from Japan, I immediately went back to my Whakarewarewa club and started coaching them, and enjoyed some success and thought, okay, I quite like this. It's a good way of giving back. Never really anticipated that, coaching a club team will ultimately lead to where I am now, but I enjoyed doing it. And so when I moved down to Wellington, a club down there got in contact with me. I ended up coaching them. It's JP Tucker's club, Marison Pats. We won Jubilee Cup, the Wellington club competition down there. The next year I took the Wellington under-19s when they had the first national competition, the Jacobs competition. We had a great squad. We won the nationals there. And through that period, I was still working in the police. So just, when I just finish work and rush off to trainings and sometimes sleep during the day, go to training and then go and work night shifts. So that was just normal for me, balancing the two. Until a job back at Bay of Plenty got advertised, and I got asked if I was interested in applying. And it wasn't an easy decision to make, actually, to decide whether I wanted to chuck my name in, because coaching can be pretty fickle. It's
a results business.
It's a results-driven business, and at the time, Bay of Plenty were dead last in the NPC, with not a lot of Super Rugby representation. So, from going from a secure job, and I was pretty committed, so I was starting to, sit some exams and get qualified for moving further up the ladder, to putting that on hold again and going to coach a team in a job that promised nothing, and were dead last in the competition was pretty. It consumed a lot of my brain and time deciding whether that was the right thing to do. But in the end, my pull back home, pull to Bay of Plenty, a province that I'm deeply passionate about, and the opportunity to just test myself to see if I was good enough at that level, ultimately went out and never looked back.
Natalia said that the sort of lockdown period was a significant period of growth professionally, despite not having a whistle in your hand because of the uncertain future, and you're looking after everyone and the communication. Do you look at that period the same way?
Yeah, I think everybody looks back on that period with both fond memories and like a lot of challenges. It was a really uncertain time for everybody, but mostly I look back on it with a lot of fondness, because one, it gave me the ability to sort of just stop and breathe for a while, because I think coaching is really all-consuming, and I'm probably, the way I'm inclined is I'm kind of like just balls deep, full noise. Once I put my hand up for something, there's kind of no holds barred, and that forced a bit of a stop and but I enjoyed the family time. I enjoyed the walks. I enjoyed walking around and seeing neighbours being friendly to each other and, getting fit. And despite the world being in this really uncertain place, I thought a lot came out of it, a lot of positivity came out of it. But from a work front, I had genuine concern for our staff, and our players, and what the non-activity meant for them. So we got creative around how we could keep supporting each other, how we could keep growing and developing as individuals and the rugby players, coaches, a lot of upskilling, a lot of Zooms, just doing the things that probably a lot of people did to continue to grow themselves and keep themselves active over a period where, pretty much restricted to your household.
I'm going to link you up to the Chiefs. I love that we're an hour in and we haven't sort of really touched on coaching yet. So we've got a lot to get to in the back half. But I think it sort of is going to blend nicely into it is Te Ao Māori and kapa haka, because what we're going to talk about is culture and how you build culture. And I don't think people realize, we certainly didn't, like what a major part of your life kapa haka played. And Maru said, you were part of a group that went to the Nationals on Matatini, and they would practice 2 days every second weekend from 9 till 5 on a Saturday and Sunday when they got closer. After Christmas, they'll practice Friday from 6 till 10 all day, Saturday and Sunday, and sometimes during the week as well. And you were one of a handful, maybe less than that, NPC rugby players that also did it. Can you tell us about that, why that's important, and what you got from it?
Yeah, I think growing up in Rotorua, Te Ao Māori, and in particular sort of the Māori performing arts was, pretty common. In actual fact, when I got my first car, my dad was a panel beater, and he panel beated this old beat up, rusty, shitty Hillman Hunter. That was my first car that I used to roll around in. When he bought me that, I come to the quick realization that nobody was going to provide petrol for me. And so I had to get a job. And, for young people growing up in Rotorua, a lot of people earn money by performing for tourists. And so, I decided, I'm going to give that a go. I knew a lot of my close friends were doing that as, like a secondary income. They'd work all day, and then you'd go to a local hotel and you'd do an hour performance. And I think you might get $20 a night which for a school kid, $20 for an hour was bloody good money. And you do that 7 nights a week, it's $140. You're the rich guy at school. No problem putting petrol in the car, especially when it was about 60 cents or 70 cents a litre back then, man. That was good, the good old days. But that probably was one of my sort of introduction to, getting on a stage, putting on a pew and singing and haka, and then they just naturally morphed into the competitive side of Māori performing arts, and so I ended up performing for 2 groups, Tuarangi Ngāti Wāhio, and later in a bit further down the track, a group called Manaia. And I just love the opportunity to go out and express yourself on a stage like that, and just celebrate being Māori. And I come to appreciate it a hell of a lot more when I actually finish playing rugby, because there's so many parallels, there's so many similarities. Like you start off with a bit of planning. What's the game plan? And then how are we going to break up, how are we going to deliver each item of this performance? And you need to be physically fit, and you need to be disciplined, and you need to turn up, and you need to work hard, and you need to collaborate, and you need to, there's teamwork, and
it's periodization of training as well, right?
It is. It's exactly that. And then you get to go out on the stage, and for 25 minutes, you put your heart and soul, you leave everything out on the stage, and you hope that you're good enough that you get another opportunity to perform by making the finals. So it helped for me, post rugby, feed the competitiveness within me, and in a very different, environment, but I got the same sort of buzz. Yeah.
There's a story that's been fed to us as well, that maybe there was a week in Rotorua where a whole bunch of speeding tickets went unticketed because you were trying to learn a waiata.
Probably, yeah. Like, I'm not fluent in Te Reo, so one of the real challenges around being involved in a kapa haka group is that I don't pick up the words, like I've got to commit it to memory. I can't listen to something and just, a bit like a story we're telling you could pretty much regurgitate it word for word if you listen to it enough times, but like listening to an English song. But with the Māori kupu, it was literally one line repeat, and I'm talking on like a dictaphone, like the old school listen to it. And there were probably a few times when I was abusing my time in the police car when, as a community constable, playing a lot of kapa haka music on repeat when probably we should have been stopping a few people.
But that speaks to your determination, right? To get it right and to remain and stay involved.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, probably should have been a lot more professional in my job, but yeah. Is
it the same professionalism when you're applying some fake tan for Manaia?
No. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm pretty sure that he put on a few highlights when he got on the stage, just to accentuate the muscles. But yeah, I know exactly where Murray's going with that. Yeah.
Did you turn out orange?
I would say it was just a nice bronzy tan, but he'll say it's definitely Oompa Loompa orange.
Yeah, he said it was Oompa Loompa orange. That's exactly what it was.
Okay, let's link up to 2021. So in 2020, Warren Gatland's Chiefs played 8 and lost 8. And then the next year you come in as interim coach. Well, Gats is away with the Lions. And with that same playing group, you played 8, won 5, one of the standout teams in the competition, and made it to the final against the Crusaders. What a transition. Like, what's happened? Like, how have you changed that same group of players, and what have you done when you've come in?
It's a good question, because I think the 8 losses in a row were a lot more was attributed to those than I think was really sort of justified. I mean, you lose 8 games and you lose 8 games, but a lot of them were by really narrow margins and could easily have been wins. But again, we're in the results-driven business, and so a lot was made of that. I had the good fortune of being basically a fly on the wall in the Chiefs environment while Gats was coaching the Chiefs through that period. Not in every day, but in enough to be able to see all of the really good work that was going on. And I knew I was going into the role in the interim capacity, so I was looking for little avenues around, where can I add value? What's happening in this environment that perhaps really could be modified or changed? Where can I add influence? And I certainly saw all of the good stuff, and I picked up a couple of ideas. And one of the ideas, I think, was that there was a little bit of a lack of identity. So one thing that the Chiefs have never lacked for is an identity, and it was probably really at its strongest when in the Dave Rennie, Wayne Smith era, where they did a lot of work, with Ora Kihi, our local cultural advisor, around connecting to this region, to Waikato Tainui, and all of the surrounding areas, and how the stories from the region can be utilised in a team environment and bring some real purpose to what the team did. And through no fault of anybody's, that had kind of been lost a little bit through players, coaches, the people that have been big drivers of it moving on, players, coaches, until really only a couple of players when I come into the team that were part of that environment were left there. One of them being Sam Kane, who by his own admission said, look, Donk, we want this to continue. This is a big part of who we are, but I'm not the right person to do it. I can't do it. And so I saw that as a space that I was pretty comfortable in. So I spoke to a lot of ex-players. I spoke to a lot of coaches. I spoke to a lot of people, get a lot of information that says, okay, we've got to try and bring this back, but we've got to bring it back and not do it the same as before. We've got to make it our own. So when I came into the Chiefs, that was a big part of what I did. It was actually nothing to do with the rugby. We had good rugby players and we had good coaches. We just needed to stand for something a bit bigger. We needed a higher purpose, and that's the whole, bringing Chiefs mana to life, and then creating the framework for us to hold, to some standards and some values to live by daily that were going to ultimately help us get the on-field and off-field outcomes that we desired. And a lot of that was sort of again around some accountability. So one of the things that stood out to me in the year when I came and I was fly on the wall was that everyone thought that the culture was great. Everyone thought we had good players and they were tight. But I didn't find that there was a whole lot of accountability on their part. And in the end of year review, the players literally did shred a lot of the people in the organisation to shreds. And I just sort of stood up at the beginning of my first meeting at the Chiefs in 2021 and said, look, fellas, you're aware that I said in the reviews, and I really applaud your bravery, your courage for being so open and honest. Like, clearly things are not as you want them to be, but you've got to accept some responsibility for these results as well. And one thing we're going to make really clear is that I'm not going to be standing here in 12 months and have an end-of-year review and have you, tear me or any of the staff to shreds in the same manner. That's not a threat. That's just what I'm suggesting here is we actually need to grow. We need to build from this experience. We need to be men. We need to find a space where we trust each other enough that we can speak freely without fear of persecution or taking things personally, in the interests of actually growing as a rugby team. And so we created forums and established some new values and behaviours that we could hold ourselves accountable to, and we still do to this day.
Were you surprised at how effective it was so quickly?
I always had a sense that, well, it had worked before, and it had worked before, and we just needed to revive it and make it theirs, and make this new group understand that there was an identity. There's a whakapapa in the club, a really strong one and a successful one. But we couldn't just reinvent the wheel. We needed to connect and make it theirs. So it was different but same. And I just felt that there was real buy-in, and it was easy to get buy-in because we'd done the homework to understand the direction we wanted to go and how we were going to get there. And because there was an appetite for change. Like when you lose 8 games in a row, you start to question everything. You start to look under rocks for solutions, and I think they were always there. We had good players. The cattle were there. We just needed to, know where north was and then start heading there.
There's a weird dynamic at play here too, right? Because Gats is still the coach, and you're coming in, and I'm assuming it's all with his sort of blessing, but he's still coming back, and then you got to sort of figure out how it works when you've created this new culture which has been so successful and everyone's bought into it, and then figure out how he plays in it. Was that a difficult time just with figuring out what that looks like?
Yes and no. Like I went over to the Chiefs fully aware that I was going in an interim capacity. I didn't actually have any guarantees of staying at the Chiefs beyond the 12 months. So, I was fully expecting that I'd just go over there, and then after 12 months I'd get exited, or maybe if I did a good job I might have the opportunity to stay on as an assistant coach. And I was really, and after sort of a pre-season, I think they probably saw enough that I would stay on as an assistant coach when Gets come back, which I ended up signing. And I was fully prepared to do that, and I was excited about the opportunity to get to be mentored and work alongside one of the world's best, most experienced coaches. And he is a quality human. Like Warren Gatland's one of top draw. And as I said before, it wasn't all his fault that that the team went through a bad patch, and it wasn't all me why we managed to turn that around. Like, it was a collective effort. And when we started to get some success and Gats come back from overseas, there were some conversations that went on at sort of, with the CEO and at board level and around the players and coaching staff around, well, what's this going to look like now? Because we feel like we're on this trajectory. But Gats, again, just being the quality human that he was, just pretty much just put that to rest straight away, coming and said, I can see all the good work that's going on. I think that Clayton should continue to be the head coach, and I'm happy to assist in whatever capacity the group and the organisation feels I can add value. So that brought about the sort of the creation of the director of rugby role, and again I still had the benefit then of sort of being the head coach and leading the program, but still being able to bounce ideas off Gats, which is
what a ride for you. What an acknowledgement of your coaching. That, like you say, Warren Gatland, one of the greatest of all time, has come and sort of said this is the right man to drive this forward based on what you'd brought in across 12 months.
Yeah, really, really humbling. I obviously loved doing the job, but I never coveted Gats's job. Like, again, I want to make it really clear that I would have been super happy to just continue, but just, again, I'm just humbled and grateful that everyone in the organisation recognised that something was, there was a bit of a movement of positive change, and to stay on that trajectory, that potentially that was the best solution, and that's what happened.
So you have the meeting at the start of the season. Are you comfortable with sharing some of the changes or some of the things that were put in place that were easy to do?
Yeah. We just, people talk about culture, and culture to me in its simplest form is just the way that we do things around here. Like, you go into any organisation, it's just the way that you do things, and the Chiefs have certainly got a way that we do things, and you've been into our environment, you've seen how humble things are, and so we that's a part of who we are and why we do what we do. But it was actually going through a process of collectively agreeing on what these values were going to be, because you go into any rugby environment or you go into any organisation and inevitably they'll have, some values written on the wall or on a flag or, on their website. And that's all good and well. There's some awesome ones, but really your culture is defined by your ability to actually live and breathe those on a daily basis. And so, I don't believe that you will get people to do that unless they have been part of the process around what are we actually agreeing to live by. And so we talked about some rituals. So what are the rituals that are really important in this organisation? One of them is haka, one of them is waiata, a whatanua. So whatanua gate, it's at FMG Stadium. There's stories around that. So we ensure that our jerseys are unique. They tell a story, are deeply connected to this region. Don't just put this jersey on. It's not just a bit of cotton. It's got a story to tell, and you're a big part of it, and you're going to help bring the story to life. So, those are rituals that we agreed on were really important, and every year we will remind ourselves around why they're important. Expectations. So I talked about the challenges between players and coaches and how they viewed the world, particularly when things were under pressure. So we come up with I got the players to say, well, you tell me how you want me to coach you. You tell me and the rest of the coaches what you need to see for you to get to the end of the year and be comfortable that we've done the job that you expect us to do. And equally, we'll do the same of you. So ours is really simple. We just said to the players, mindset, skill set, system. Okay, so from a mindset point of view, we say no compromise on effort and attitude. So when you turn up here, come with a good attitude and give 100% effort every time you come. The skill set was be committed to growing your skill set as a rugby player. And the system was to understand that there is no system without you in the system. So nail your shit, understand what we need you to do in each aspect of this game, and just be committed to nailing your shit. Don't worry about the guy next to you. Don't worry about he'll do his job. You just worry about doing your job. So that's all we asked the players to do. Players gave us a little bit more feedback. So theirs were alignment. So have clear areas of responsibility, but also be aligned in your thinking, but have clear areas of responsibility. So they wanted to know that if I want to know question about the attack, I want to go to the attack coach or the D coach or the line out coach. I don't want to be out on the rugby field and having two coaches having conflicting discussions out on the field. To me, that's not alignment. To them, that's not alignment. So it's okay that you have disagreements and challenge, but do that behind closed doors. And when you come out on the rugby field, absolute alignment. Yep, sweet. Okay. Next one was around detail. So bring high levels of detail to your area of expertise. So we've got people ask a lot of questions now around, why do you have so many coaches? It's because there's a demand for detail. And the margins in the game are so small that often the winning and losing can be in that detail. So we have a line out coach, a scrum coach, a kick strategy coach, a phase attack coach, a strike coach, a head coach, we've got a lot of skills coaches. So, and a lot of that's been driven by narrowing your portfolio, but bringing a high level of detail. So being really intimately knowledgeable, in the tactical part of your portfolio. So they want to see that from us. Feedback, they wanted feedback that was, honest, timely and factual. What was the other one? Consistency was the big one. So we want, coaches to be consistent in their behavior, irrespective of performance outcomes. So what they're basically saying is, Donk, you're a little bit of a grumpy bastard, but we can live with that if you are consistently grumpy, but because we know that's you're being authentic. If you come in and you're a little bit over friendly or you're not your normal self, that puts up a few, what the hell's going on here? Like what's going on? equally, if I'm really happy or if I'm a really happy guy most of the time, and then I come in and I'm angry, you've got thunder written all over my face, people feel like they have to walk around on eggshells, not being consistent in my behavior. So it's basically a challenge to say, whatever you choose to be, however you are, what's your authentic self, just be that person. And so, we will do things. So there's about 4 or 5 things, and I've articulated most of them, I think. The other one was just celebrating our success. So when we win, personally or collectively, we want to celebrate our successes, and that can come in lots of different forms. And so people will probably say, oh, that's all good. That's just words on a wall again. But so how do you bring that to life? So there will be times unsolicited where I turn up to work and we have our meetings in the morning. So I just walk in and just go, okay, need some feedback on how the coaching group's going. Might take 5 minutes, might take 20 minutes, but we're going back in the room, in the coach's office. When you're ready, come knock on the door, be prepared to give us some feedback. And that's quite, that's putting yourself in a really vulnerable position, because these blokes generally won't hold back. Like, we've created an environment where you can speak freely. So we'll go into the coach's office, and some days we might be sitting in there for 2 minutes and dunk, 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 come out. Guys are doing a great job. Really happy with the way you're going. Keep doing what you're doing. We're happy. Other days you go in there and 5 minutes, 10 minutes passes, 15 minutes, and that's when the coaches start, oh, fuck. What are they going to come out with, You start getting your heckles up and then go out, and we literally just stand there like, jury and executioner, just stand there and receive the feedback, and they always do it in a really positive way. And I can't recall us ever, being hit with something that was really gutting, but they'll give us some feedback. They'll say, there's been a couple of instances when we've been out on the field, we haven't been clear, we've walked off the field, we've still been unclear. You two are giving conflicting messages, you need to sort it out. And then we'll go away and we'll discuss that. We always make sure we just receive the information, even though sometimes there might be some context around what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing, and they're just unaware of it. But we just receive the information, go back and say we're committed to come back with some answers, and that's what we do.
Does the feedback always come through the captain, or do people are people comfortable like speaking there?
I think they'll share the load. They share the load.
You're on the jury this week, brother.
Yeah, but so those are a couple of examples around rituals, expectations of each other, really clear, not no wishy-washy, straight down the middle, clear what we expect of each other. An identity. So what is our identity? Our identity is ultimately what people see when we're out on the rugby field. What do we want them to see? When people turn up, pay good money to go and watch the Chiefs, or they turn on the TV to watch us, what should they expect? What do you want them to see? What did they used to see when we were winning championships? Can we deliver that? Or do we need a new identity? So a lot of discussion around, okay, this is what we want to see. This is how we want to play, and then agree on that, and then so that's what we want them to see, and then you got to create some behaviours. So, okay, what are some things that we're going to do at training every day that are going to help us be able to deliver that identity? So a lot of it's things like competitiveness, and care. So care being not the lovey-dovey hand around the back stuff, but caring enough that I'll call you out for stuff that is not acceptable in this environment. That level of care, that you care so much that you can't walk past behaviours that are not aligned to what you've agreed. So a whole range of that stuff.
I'm curious now as well, because I think that's straightforward to implement from a playing perspective, but as an organisation, you've also got a front office or an administration function. Do they have to live and breathe by those same values as well?
It's a really good question, because I've like in the policing example, there's a really, really clear organisational alignment. So this is what we stand for in the police. These are our values, and everybody from, the commissioner down to, recruits at police college, live by. It's really clear. And I don't think that was that clear in our organisation. I obviously when we come in and we started doing the stuff with the rugby and everyone could see the value in what we were doing, there was a lot of interest. And then what we've had is that we've had versions of it sort of appear in the commercial department, versions appear with the board. But part of our hui that you're aware of that we were supposed to be having this week was around pulling all of that together and going, as an organisation, what does this look like? And to be so for transparency, the stuff that we've got on our wall, our the stuff that I've just talked a lot in depth about, I'm not precious about that. We do that now. We don't need the words on the wall. We just do that because that's the way that we do things. But I'd love for us as an organisation to hang our head on 3 or 4 things, and inevitably there will be around things that are important in Māori context, so manaakitanga, rangatiratanga, kotahitanga, those sorts of things, yeah.
How has Donk, the coach, evolved both sideline, like getting animated and screaming and like feeling the pressure of games, and taking it home? Like, have you matured?
Yeah, I think you probably see 2 completely different people. One of my big work-ons, I think, as a coach is around controlling my emotion. Like I wear my heart on my sleeve, like I talked about before, that I'm fully invested. Like I want the team to do well. I want the individuals within our team to prosper and become All Blacks. And I desperately want our fans to be able to say that we're Super Rugby champions, and so all of that stuff weighs heavy on us all. And so when you have that level of investment, in games, you're writing every decision, you're writing every action, and, you go through the full range of emotions. And most of the time, I'm pretty cool, calm and collected and keep it in check, but there will be times when I'll have an outburst. And, as much as I go into a game, convincing myself that that's not going to happen, that, you'll see yourself on the monitoring. It's fuck, balls that one up again. But
is there something that sets you off more than other things? Will it be like a referee decision or a player doing something?
Can only be that one, can't it?
Which is against like the team plan?
I think it's contextual, like it's situational, probably situational. Like the things that bring pressure are scoreboard pressure, time pressure, and so you'll normally start to see those sorts of behaviours start to manifest themselves or show themselves, when you're getting closer towards the end of the game, and every decision becomes critical.
Is the hardest role on a rugby staff the person that receives your message from the coach's box and then having to filter and interpret it for the team? Is that a really hard role?
It's a specialist role. I wouldn't say it's a hard role.
All jokes aside, because I can imagine in the heat of the moment you're giving quite direct, colourful instruction, and then that professional to go, okay, this is what he's wanting.
Yeah, I think for the moments that you see some animation on TV, I would like to think that what is getting communicated down the the walkie-talkie or the mic is pretty clear and concise, not a whole lot of jumble. But some colourful language probably gets used at times. And why I say it's a specialist position is because we use David Hill at the Chiefs, and it's the art of being able to decipher what's important. Yeah. So there might be 30 seconds of words that come out of my mouth, but only 5 seconds of word that actually get delivered to the key drivers. So I think that's a really important skill. And to be honest, every time you click that button, you talk down the radio, you're verbalizing what's going on in your head, and you're hoping that's some of what you say is actually going to be really important to the people out on the field. But if I be perfectly honest, and I watch David and I go, he's not even fucking giving the message. He's purposely just, he'll run in the direction, and then I'll watch him, and then he'll come back and he'll go, yeah, delivered the message. And I'm like, you fucking never delivered the message. But But that's actually a good time to just go, okay, yeah, you're probably better off not to deliver that message anyway. So that's a bit fun and games, mate. It's all part of the game day experience.
Because I could imagine there's a little bit of a feeling of helplessness once the game starts, that you've done all the work through the week up until that point. And I get that there are fine margins, but is there a lot you can actually affect in that 80 minutes?
I reckon in a game there's probably one or two critical moments that you can offer a piece of advice that might actually be really meaningful or could change the course of the game. The rest, you're a complete waste of time. You're a spectator in the stands just like everybody else. One of my mates asked me the other day, mate, when you got that laptop in front of you and you're looking at it and all that, what are you actually doing? And
because you're not on social media, so
yeah. But I genuinely think that our capacity to really influence the game, as much as we would love to, is bugger all. Yeah.
It's such a wild job.
Yeah.
Because again, I've made the point a few times with a few rugby, like you live and die by the results on the field, and so it's all Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday, whatever, Sunday. It's all the work that goes in before then.
Yeah,
determines the success or failure. Which I guess is the same for any job, but I feel like with a coach, you think, oh yeah, they've just done that magic play. They've called that magic play that they.
Yeah, it is. Like, it's high pressure job because of the expectation, because you want to do well for so many people, stakeholders, sponsors, everybody that helps make the game actually come to fruition. So there is that, but as I've grown older, like I probably used to, I could really feel losses, like it used to get me down, and you'd lose sleep over, losing games and where do we go wrong? And I mean, there's still elements of that, but just come to I know now that you're going to win every game. You're going to lose some. It's about being able to, take those on the chin, understand where things went wrong, and be committed to, finding those small margins that are hopefully going to give you a better outcome on the weekend.
Because a lot of professional sport seems to be like moderating your expectation almost, never getting too high and never getting too low, and just being neutral. Or is that like a real crazy read on it?
And I got really high expectations of myself and of the team. Like, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I don't want to accept, mediocrity, or I don't want to accept just being competitive. I want to win. It's what we're employed to do. It's not our ultimate purpose. Again, that mana, if we lose, but we do it with mana, I can live with that. It's like a good example. Every time I'm talking to a potential young player coming through the system, or people that we're wanting to recruit, is like, oh, what are your aspirations? What do you want? And if they say, I want to be a chief, instead of saying I want to be an All Black, it's almost like it's not good enough. We're not the end of the road. We're not that's not success to me, just becoming the chief. Like I want people who are aspirational to become All Blacks, because when they come into your environment, they're likely to give you everything that we talk about on our PO, and that's going to give them the opportunity to become an All Black, but also help the team be successful. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being aspirational and just fighting to be your best. And perhaps I'm like that because I know that I wasted some opportunities when I was younger to do that.
Is the logical expansion of that you want to be the All Blacks coach?
No, it's not something that I genuinely had on heart, have given a lot of thought to. One thing that has served me really well in life, but also predominantly in my coaching career, is just trying to do the best possible job that I can, that the one that's directly in front of me, and just game to game, campaign to campaign, year to year, and know that if I do a good job, then opportunities will arise out of that at some stage in the future. Someone will recognise the good work you do, and that will open some doors. So I've never been a big goal setter. I've never been that sort of person who sits down and writes goals and has, very meticulous steps around how I'm going to get from point A to point B. It's just do the best that you can and the thing that's right in front of you. And if you nail that, then worry about the next one, then the next one. And that's served me pretty well, and I don't see myself changing. So whatever happens in the future around what life after the Chiefs, I've got no idea. Yeah.
It's working for you at the moment. Just sort of zooming out, we won't keep you that much longer, but we've had a bunch of rugby guests on this year with quite different takes on the health of rugby in New Zealand and the future and things that they think it could do better or worse. Do you have strong opinions on what the future of rugby looks like?
I worry about our game. I genuinely worry about our game around how we keep young men and women, boys and girls invested and wanting to play rugby and being lifers, like sticking with it for life and, contributing at all the different levels, from a player to a coach to a manager to an administrator to the lady behind the bar, just making sure that cycle, we never lose that, because I know how important it's been in my life. And I think it can continue to play a big part in other people's lives. So I generally worry about the participation part of the game. I worry about the sustainability of how we are currently operating at the professional arm of the game. We're seeing a lot of evidence of big clubs, particularly up in the north, that fall over, and how can that be? Like something's not right in the ecosystem that we are spending beyond our means, and what that might mean for me or our players and their livelihoods in the future. I worry about that. What I don't worry about is the strength of the All Blacks or the strength of the Chiefs or the talent pool coming through New Zealand rugby, because that's strong. So selecting being part of the selection process for the AB15 was a good reminder for me that there are a shitload of good rugby players running around in New Zealand who, given the opportunity and given a bit of a time, could become All Blacks. And a lot is said about, if I just can quickly talk about Super Rugby. So I think Super Rugby is a great competition. It's often maligned in the media. So it's not the competition that it used to be. And that may well be the case, but I would challenge any of them to go, when you go and see a really good game of Super Rugby, that's a fucking good spectacle. It's a great game. It's played with speed, high skill levels, lots of ball and play time, players expressing themselves, like it's a good brand of rugby. And the best of those players go on to play for the All Blacks. And the All Blacks, despite all of the change, and despite the South Africans not being in Super Rugby, we still continue to perform really well on the international stage. Okay, over the last few years, we haven't sort of hit the real heights that we had when we had some generational players playing, a few years ago, and they've moved on. And I know the Chiefs that we've been impacted by their departures, but that's the circle of life, right? People are going to come and go. But I think our capacity to produce really good rugby players and to play an entertaining brand of rugby and to go and perform on the world stage is still as strong as ever. Where we've lost, where our rugby has been impacted by the departure of the South Africans, is that they play a different style of rugby, whereas in New Zealand and Australia, we largely play a very homogenized version of rugby. We largely play the same sort of stuff. So when we encounter something different, it takes a bit of adjustment. There's a little bit of shock factor, all right? And that might result in a loss. But our capacity to learn from that and grow really quickly and then go out and beat the team that we just lost to is quite common. So if anything, I think we still produce really good rugby players. We still play a great brand of rugby. We're still right up there in the international rankings. We just need to play those teams a little bit more often, or maybe down here, get teams start playing a little bit differently, like the Blues did and enjoyed some success this year. Vern come in, they played a far more direct, narrow game of rugby. We would argue that it's not that entertaining, but it was effective, and it helped them win a championship, and it was different, and people struggled for a period of time to adapt and go, shit, how do we deal with this? But their challenge next year will be to evolve that, because other people will learn and grow and get better.
One last rugby question from me, and it's a bit of a topical
That's
one.
a hell of an answer, by the way.
Yeah. Do you think Kiwi rugby players, New Zealand rugby players playing overseas should be able to play for the All Blacks if they play their club rugby overseas?
I'm always open to the opportunity that might happen, and it may well be inevitable. But I'd like to think that, again, we've still got enough talent coming through our local, our domestic competitions that we don't need to do that. And I still think that our current rules and regulations afford our elite players the opportunity to take sabbaticals, go away, experience rugby on the other side of the world or in Japan, and earn good money for a relatively short, period, and then come back into the All Blacks. I think that system works, but as the world evolves, inevitably rugby will follow, and so whether we get to that point, I'm not sure. Certainly, all the noises that we hear from New Zealand rugby is it's not something they want to entertain, but yeah, it will be interesting moving forward. It will certainly be interesting.
Man, for all the words at the start about perhaps being worried about a 90-minute podcast, we are flying. This has been such an epic chat.
Yeah.
I'm going to attempt to land the plane, Shay, unless you've got anything else.
No. I mean, family is kind of the last open topic, which I guess is balancing the high-profile rugby career with the private life and being a father, like getting that balance right. Is it a case of when you leave the training ground, when you leave the stadium, that's all left behind?
That's the intent, but to be perfectly honest, it's not something that I'm great at. Again, full investment is, in season, it's a 24/7, 7 days a week job. There literally is no time, I don't reckon, to sort of fully step back and smell the roses in season. You kind of just, it starts, and then before you know it, it's finished. And I'm really grateful that my family kind of accept that that's just the way things roll. And I certainly try in the off season to make up for the lost time or the time that they sacrifice, that we collectively sacrifice to as a family to do what I do. But we also, we enjoy what we do as well. I'm really mindful in my job that the people that are impacted most are my kids. So I see it mostly in my son. My daughter, she's a bit more, she's not that sporty. She's more into the arts. She's into kapa, haka. She's into acting and that sort of stuff. And she's the sort of person that, if I took her to a new school, she'd know, 3/4 of the school by lunchtime. Whereas my son was he's a little bit more introverted. And I know that, when he goes to school, he's at Hamilton Boys. When he goes to school, when we win, he walks out the door pretty happy with life. When we lose, it's not a great day at the office, having to walk into school. And you can just imagine, that's just young men and that they give him a fair bit of shit. I think he's getting a lot better at just taking it on the chin or brushing it off. But to understand that your work has that impact on your kids is sometimes difficult. And so, got to constantly have those chats and remind them that that's just the job. It's just a job, and winning, losing, that's just part of life. No matter what happens, that will be all good. Yeah, we'll find a way.
I'm going to bring in Natalia to sort of finish us off. She says, much of the privacy element we spoke about is about him being humble. No desire to talk about himself. He doesn't think he's doing anything special or different. It's just doing his job or his way of thinking, which is just normal to him. He's a bit of a walking contradiction, being a person that people find a little scary or intimidated by, a man of few words who is probably the happiest in the company of a small number of people, and yet a real soft, lovable character, articulate, and a great connector of people. I think anyone that's made it this far will have seen all of those words. It's been such a cool chat. Like, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your life and your story with us. And Shay, do you want to just finish out with Maru?
Yeah, Maru said that you didn't mention rugby once in your speech at your 50th, which I think is a wonderful testament to the rounded life that you've lived. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, the word rugby never came up. His main message was to share experiences with the ones that you love. And I've never heard the bro talk like that. Maybe he's just getting older and maturer and acknowledging that things haven't always been perfect. But I think that's a wonderful way to look at life. And maybe if we zoom out, like, rugby is a big part of this country, but it is one small part of this country. And I guess those experiences that you have along the way really shape who you are as a person. And man, I'm blown away that we've got this insight into who you are and how you think and what makes you you. And I just want to thank you very much for being so open and coming here.
Yeah, and I 100% believe that. I may not have always believed it, but, you know, like a little bit of maturity and life experiences certainly gives you a different perspective on life. And so I share that with the players. You know, I think when the money's all gone, when the lights go dim, like, all that's left is the memories, you know. And so make sure you make good ones in rugby, make good ones with your friends. When you start getting a little bit older in life and some of your friends or your aunties and uncles and your nannies and, you know, start passing away, that's the reality of how quickly life can go by. And so, yeah, that'd be my parting comment, was just to live life making memories, good ones.
Thanks for joining us. You don't need to do another podcast for about 5 years now.
Yeah, I'm hoping there's going to be the case that people are going to go, there's enough there that I'm never going to have to talk to anyone else ever again.
I think you've done a good job. Yeah. Thanks so much, Tom.
Yeah, no worries, Josh.